guys, what is going on? This is Airplane Mode, and I'm here with the IXEG 737-300 Classic, and today I'm going to be flying Alaska Airlines Flight 75 with non-stop service from Portland up to Juneau, Alaska. As you guys can see, the plane is not started, so we can go ahead, get into the cockpit, and get the plane started up. Guys, welcome aboard Alaska Airlines Flight 75 with full non-stop service to Juneau, Alaska. The flight should take us about 2 hours and 35 minutes to do, with 95 passengers on board and once again a cruising altitude of 34,000 feet. To begin, we can go ahead and check that our landing gear lever is down, which it is. Our flaps are retracted, our speed brakes are down, our engine start levers are set to cut off, our thrust levers are set to idle, our parking brake is set, and we can now go ahead and turn on our battery. We can check that our engine hydraulic pumps are both on and our electric hydraulic pumps are both off. After that, we can go ahead and check that our weather radar is set to the off position, and we can go ahead and start our ground power. Once we do that, we can go ahead and load our fuel, so we can go to flight, edit weight and balance, and load our fuel. It already is loaded, so as you guys can see, 19,809 pounds of fuel for the flight. We can go ahead and resume the flight and continue with our checks. We can go ahead and start the APU as we are not paying for any fuel. Alright, now that our APU has started, we can go ahead and turn on both of the APU generators. We can turn on the fasten seatbelt signs. We can turn on the galley switch right here. We can go ahead and turn our IRS switches to nav. We can now check that our windshield wipers are set to off. Our position light can come on. It already is, as you guys can see. And we can go ahead now and program our FMC, so we can head down there and get her programmed. Alright, now that we are down here at our FMC, we can go ahead and select FMC and move to our position initialization page, and we can set our airport, which is Kilo, Papa, Delta, X-ray right there. And we can go ahead and pick this information up and set it right there. Now we can move on to our route page, and it already has Portland right there, so we can put that as our origin, and we are going to Juneau, which is PAJN, and our flight number is obviously ASA Flight 75 right there. Now we can move to our departure and arrival page. We are departing out of runway 10 right on the Mini 5 and ESCO transition. We can go back to our departure and arrival page and select our arrival. As you guys can see, there are no stars for Juneau, so we can go ahead and select an approach, which in my case today is going to be RNAV for runway 8. We can select that with the EAF transition, and after that we can go move to our legs page. We can go ahead and clear any discontinuities. That looks good. And now that we have done that, we can go ahead and move to our inner ref page, and we can hit index and performance. Now we have to put in our zero fuel weight, so we can go ahead and click ground services, and our zero fuel weight for today is 43.2, so we can go ahead and set that 43.2. alright, 43.25, close enough. We can go ahead and set that, so we can put 43.25 right there, and that will autofill our gross weight. After that, we can go ahead and put in our reserves, which today is going to be 1.0, and we have a cost index today of 51, and obviously a cruising altitude of 34,000 feet. And for our cruising wind today, we have a cruising wind of 274 at 56. So we can put that into the cruise wind section, and a cruise temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. Now we can move to our N1 limit and do 7/ right there, and that will put in the outside air temperature, and we can go ahead and derate for today. We can move to our takeoff page. It has already auto-filled flaps 5 and a trim of 3.4. We can go ahead and confirm our V speeds. Now we can move to our next page, and we can set our thrust reduction altitude of 3,000 feet. We can move back to our previous page, and as you can see, there is a trim of 3.4, so we can go ahead and set that. That looks good. Right about there. Alright, now we can move back to our legs page right here, and we can go ahead and activate our route and hit execute, and now our route is configured. We can go ahead and set that back to the takeoff page, and that is pretty much it for the FMC. Alright, so as we wait for our IRS to align, we can go ahead and continue our checklist by turning our yaw damper on. We can, after that, make sure that our crossfeed selector is closed, and we can turn on the rest of our fuel pumps just like so. After that, we can go ahead and turn on our emergency lights. We can make sure that our equipment cooling supply switches are normal, just like that. We can go ahead and turn on our window heaters and make sure that our pilot static heat switches are both off. And we can go ahead now and turn on our electric hydraulic pumps and make sure that the air temperature switch is set to passenger cabin, just like so. Now I can move up here and turn on our circle fans. We can put both of our packs to auto, like that. And we can go ahead and turn on our APU bleed. After that, we can move to our pressurization panel and set our cruising altitude of 34,000 feet. Just like that. And our landing altitude of 25 feet. We'll just set that as close as we can, which is going to have to be right there. We can go ahead and confirm that our pressurization switch is set to auto. Now we can set our cabin altitude, which is just Portland's elevation, which in my case is 30 feet. So we can go ahead and set that and get rid of the 4 there, just like so. And now we can move to our MCP panel, so we can go ahead and move to that. We can turn both of our flight directors on. We can arm our auto throttle and set our speed to V2, which in my case is 142 knots. We can set that just like so. We can set our heading, which for runway 10 right at Portland is a heading of 103. So we can go ahead and set that, which is right there. And we can go ahead and set our altitude of 34,000 feet. Just go directly to our cruise. Great, so after our MCP panel is complete, we can go ahead and set our speed markers. So as you guys can see, our V1 speed is 131, so we can go ahead and set 131, which is about there. And our VR, which is 133. That's set there, and our V2 speed of 142. So we can go ahead and set 142, which is good right there. After that, we can go ahead and set our altimeter, which in my case is 3042, currently at Portland, so we can set that 3042 right there. And we can go ahead and make sure that our radios are set. We're not flying with any radios today. We can go ahead and turn our packs off for pushback and engine start. We can turn our anti-collision light on, and we can go ahead and call for our pushback. So we can go to plugins, better pushback, and start our pushback. Alright, and one more thing that we have to do before we start our pushback is clear our ground handling, so we can go ahead and just hide all of those guys for quick removal and just wait for our pushback truck to connect. Alright, so our pushback truck has been connected, so we can go ahead and release our parking brake to
Starting
set.
pushback, and you may start engines.
So we can go ahead and start our engines. We will do that after about 5 seconds of pushback, and then we can go ahead and start the engines and then complete our other checks. So that's good right there. So we can go ahead and start engine 2, set it to the ground section, and we're still looking for 25%. Alright, there's 25%. We can go ahead and introduce fuel and wait for the start switch to pop back to the off position. Alright, it's popped back to the off position, so we can go ahead and start engine 1, set it to the ground section, and wait for 25%. Alright, there's 25%, so we can go ahead and introduce fuel, and we can set our FMC back to the legs page and wait for that to pop back to off. Alright, so now that it has popped back to the off position, we can go ahead and start our engine generators. We can turn our pilot static heat switches both on. We can put our packs back to auto, like so. We can test our flight controls, so full back, full forward, full left, and full
Operation
right.
complete. Set parking brake.
Looks good. We can go ahead and set our parking brake.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
We can shut our APU bleed switch off, and we can make sure that our flight ground switch is set to flight mode. And now we can go ahead and turn our engine start switches to continuous, just like so. And we can go ahead and shut off our APU. We can now set our flaps to flaps 5. Alright, so our flaps are now set to flaps 5. We can go ahead and switch our weather radar on and turn our terrain select/deselect button to the on position, and we can wait for the hand signals. There they are. Alright, so now we can go ahead and set our auto brake to RTO. We can turn our taxi lights on, like so, and we can go ahead and taxi to the runway, so we can go ahead, release our parking brake, and get going. Alright, as we approach runway 10 right, we can go ahead and start to slow down here a little bit. We can go ahead and stop right here. We can set our parking brake, and we can go ahead, we can turn our landing lights on, we can shut our taxi lights off, and we can confirm that our flaps are set to 5, and we can go ahead and line up with the runway, release our parking brake, and line up. We can make sure that we're clear from the left, looks okay, and we can make sure that we're clear from the right. From what I can see, looks okay. Go ahead and make our turn onto 10 right. We can get out of here, so we can go ahead, stabilize our engines, so we can stabilize those 50%. Right there, and full throttle. For 133 knots. There it is. V1 rotate. A little bit gusty. Positive brake gear up. And go ahead and engage our LNAV right there. We can bring our speed to 210 knots and drop our climb to 10 degrees. There, and we can go ahead and bring up our flaps. We can go ahead and engage N1 right there. We can engage level change, and we can engage our autopilot and climb. At 2,000 feet per minute right there. And let ourselves climb. Now we can go ahead and set our engine start switches to their off position. We can put our auto brake back to off. We can go ahead and clear that little alarm right there. And now that we are at 3,000 feet, we can engage VNAV and climb via the VNAV path, and I'd call that a good departure out of Portland. Alright, now that we are approaching 10,000 feet, we can go ahead and shut our landing lights off. We can turn our runway turn-off lights off. We can turn our fasten seatbelt signs to the off position. We can set our landing gear off. And that is pretty much it until top of descent. So I will see you guys then. And one more thing we can do before we are set for cruise is set our altimeter to standard, which is in America at least 29902. So we can set that. And now we are officially set for cruise. Alright guys, so as you guys can see, we still have about 96 nautical miles left until top of descent. However, this waypoint is telling me that I have to descend to 17,919 feet before the waypoint ends. So I'm just going to round that to 17,900 feet, so we can go ahead and plug that in right here. Right about there. And I'm just going to go down at about 2,000 feet per minute. About there. Now that we are starting our descent, we can go ahead and switch our seatbelt signs to the on position. We can turn our runway turn-off lights on. We can go ahead and configure our approach ref, so we can head down to the FMC right here, init ref right there. Our gross weight, as you guys can see, is 46.2. We are going to go in with flaps 40, so we can go ahead and put that there. So wind direction, that's plus 5 knots, so that will be a VREF of 130 knots, so that will be our landing speed. Now that that is configured, we can return to our legs page, and we can go ahead and wait until we reach our next altitude restriction. Okay, so now that we are approaching our altitude restriction of 17,900 feet, we can go down to our FMC and check our next altitude restriction and speed restriction, which in my case is just going to be rounded to 7,600 feet and 240 knots. So we can go ahead and put those in now. There's our altitude, and there is our speed. Also at this time, we can go ahead and set our engine start switches to their continuous position right there, and we can go ahead and set our altimeter, which in my case at Juneau is 2979 at the moment, so we can set that 2979, and that is set right there, and we are set until our next altitude restriction. Also, one more thing I did forget to mention, we can set the heading for the runway at Juneau, which in my case is going to be 85. Can set that to 85 right there, and that is it once again until our next altitude. And now that we have just crossed through 10,000 feet, we can put our landing lights all on, and we can turn our runway turn-off lights both on, and that is once again it until we hit our next altitude. Alright guys, so now that we are at the end of this waypoint pretty much, we can go ahead and set our next altitude restriction, which in my case is going to be 3,500 feet rounded, and we can put our speed restriction in, which is 189, so we can go ahead and set those up now. There's our altitude, and our speed is 189. So that is set right there, and we can also go ahead and go down at about 2,000 feet per minute. Alright, and now that we are almost at 3,500 feet, we can once again put in our next altitude restriction, which in my case is going to be rounded to 2,800 feet. And our speed restriction is going to be 174, so we can put those in now. Right there, and 174 knots. Right there, and I'll see you guys at my next altitude restriction. Guys, so now is the moment that I will start pulling some flaps. I'm just going to set them to flaps 5 at the moment while we continue our descent, so we can slow the plane down a little bit. Alright guys, so now I'm going to drop my flaps to flaps 10, and I'm going to put my landing gear down. Also, I'm going to make sure that my speed brakes are armed. Just go ahead and set those until they are armed, which they are now. And I'm going to go ahead and disengage the autopilot after we roll out of this turn. Alright guys, so I don't know if you can see, but I can sure see the runway in sight right now. So I'm going to go ahead and disengage my autopilot and my auto throttle. And I'm going to go ahead and set my flaps to flaps 25. And also, since Juneau has a relatively short runway, I'm going to set auto brakes to 2, so we have a little bit of extra stopping power. I'm going to go ahead and set my flaps to flaps 30, and just try to maintain a visual lineup of the runway. Alright, I'm under the impression that we're a little bit high, so I'm just going to try to drop the nose a little bit. And I kind of feel like 130 knots is a little bit slow, so I'm just going to go ahead and land at 145 knots. And hopefully we get a smoother touchdown. It's 500 feet, 400. 300. It's just because of the mountains. So we are fine there. I feel like we're still a little bit high, so I'm going to just drop the nose a little bit more. And just drop my speed a little bit. And land this plane.
Minimum. $100. 50. 40. 30, 20, 10.
Floating. And we are down. Welcome to Juneau, everybody. Reverse thrust. Speed brakes. There's 70, we can bring our speed brakes in and manual braking. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Juneau. We can go ahead and put our flaps up now. We can put our speed brakes up. We can turn our landing lights off and put our taxi lights on. Just like that. Can put the flight ground switch back to the ground position. We can go ahead and start up our APU. There we go. We can put our engine start switches to off. And we can turn our strobe lights off, which they already are, so we are fine there. And I'd say that was a pretty successful landing. Alright, we can park by this Alaska over here. And I guess just run over this push cart as it is right in our way. We can go ahead and slow down. And we can stop. Alright, we can go ahead and set our parking brake and start our APU generators. And go ahead and kill our engines. And we can go ahead and shut our seatbelt signs off. And shut our anti-collision lights off. And we can shut all of our fuel pumps off except for our left forward fuel pump. We can shut our galley switch off, we can shut our window heaters off, and our pilot static heat switches can come off too. Our electric hydraulic pumps can come off. And our packs can come off. Well guys, this is going to be the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below for more content. And as always, I'll be seeing you guys in my next video. See ya!